Is PSA still the best grading service to use? Yes, welcome back to another Card Dawns video. My name is Ross and let's get straight into it. So, should you be using PSA to grade your cards? There's been a lot of controversy around PSA this year that has put a lot of people off. In my opinion, I still do think that they are the best grading service to be using. Now, don't get me wrong, they absolutely have had their moments. There's been buyback controversy. There has been times where they've damaged cards or lost cards. But the one thing I will say is that compared to other grading companies, PSA is a multi-million organization. Okay, they are grading more cards than any other grading service, more than Beckett, more than CGC, more than Ace Grading, probably more than all of those put together. They are on a completely different level. And the bigger that this PSA company becomes, the less likely they are to just drop off the face of the earth, right? So many people, myself included, have a lot of graded cards with them. And I'd be lying if I wasn't saying it's in my best interest to say that, you know, PSA was still worth using, because why would I grade a load of cards with PSA, make a load of money and then start slagging them off, right? It just wouldn't make sense. Now, I'm not denying that they've done things that have been questionable. The whole buyback thing was a massive conflict of interest. You know, I can see a place where they could make that happen, but they need to really iron out a lot of things. I know that sometimes that they, you know, you see on Reddit and stuff that they have lost cards from people. There was one time that, you know, vintage cards have gone lost and they're lots of money, and then PSA offer them, you know, a silly amount to buy them back or refund them and stuff. These are very, very small cases in the grand scheme of things. You know, if you account for how many millions of cards get graded every single year and the amount that get lost or damaged or stolen in the process, you know, it's probably less than 0.1% really in the grand scheme of things. And a lot of these big stories that you're hearing from people saying, you know, I sent in a vintage card, it got damaged and it's £50,000 and they're only offering me £20,000. Those are really isolated incidences where there are not many sales of that card, and it's really, really hard to judge what it's actually worth today. You know, if you have a PSA 10 Charizard and the last sale was last year and it was for £500, this year it could be worth twice that, 3 times that, £400, £500, it could be worth less than that. You absolutely wouldn't be able to tell. And so I think it's really important to take a step back and look at the data and look at how you would address this if you were working at PSA, because it's not always simply that easy. While you're here, if you do enjoy my videos, please do leave a like and subscribe. It would really mean a lot. And let me know what you think of PSA down in the comments too. Another thing I hear very often as to why people do not use PSA is because they use other grading companies that are cheaper and have a quicker turnaround time. Now, that is very, very good for convenience, but I will say that your business model when you're a company but grading cards is different for when you're small, when you're big, and when you're absolutely ginormous like PSA. When these companies like Ace, for example, here in the UK, which I absolutely don't mind, I know that there's an absolute market for them, it's very hard to justify that they would be able to keep their prices the same and their turnaround times the same if they were doing the same numbers as PSA. Because the bigger your company becomes, the heavier the expenses, the more staff you need to employ, and it just becomes a lot more complicated. It's very, very difficult. And we've seen in almost every grading company that there's been slip-ups, right? Ace was broken into, CGC had that whole label change thing, there's stuff going on at Beckett as well. So PSA is not the only one guilty for it, right? Now, I absolutely am not against people using Ace, people using CGC, or people using Beckett, but I will say that if you're here for an investment purpose, PSA is the most liquid, more people are buying PSA, more people are selling PSA, and there's a lot more data around PSA as well. It's much easier to find the price of a PSA 10 than it is an Ace 10 or a Beckett 10 or a CGC 10, for example. My personal experience of using PSA has been very, very good. I've only ever had one card come back cracked and the card itself wasn't affected. They recased it and everything, and it was very, very easy to do. They paid for it as well. Minor inconvenience because I had to wait a couple of months and stuff. But aside from that, I have sent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cards to PSA. Very few times have I kind of been upset with the grade. I think they're very consistent. I think they're very good. Yeah, I absolutely would recommend them. If you're not into PSA and you want to use someone else, Beckett is probably my next recommendation, then CGC, and then in the UK here, Ace as well, although Ace is still a super young company. Randy has been doing great things with Ace, and I do think that it's going to be a company that's going to continue to climb. However, it is still young, and you need to be cautious of that too. That is everything for this video. If you guys have questions, please do leave them in the comments. Thank you as always for watching. I really do appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.